All right, it is my pleasure here to be joined by Marco Andretti from the Verizon IndyCar Series. I almost said IZOD, so Verizon IndyCar Series. Welcome to Atlanta. I know you're just making a brief swing here, but do you get to spend any time in Atlanta since you don't race here much?
Not enough really. I mean, I really love this city. I'm here literally for a couple hours, doing some media hits, and then heading back to Birmingham.
Now, so let's talk about it. That's the reason you're here. So sometimes Talladega comes and does a push through Atlanta, and you guys aren't too far from Talladega. NASCAR's racing at Talladega next weekend, but we have IndyCar racing to talk about. Barber Motorsports Park. What do you think about that track? It's the Honda Grand Prix over there. You're a Honda driver, so that's got to be nice to have the sponsor tied in and talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, no, I love the track. It's a beautiful permanent road course. And we've run there. The league's run there since 2010. And it's been nice to me. I mean, I think we have an average finish of somewhere around fifth, so it's not terrible.
And that's a road course, and it seems like the Indy schedule is at half and half, or maybe two-thirds road course and about a third oval. What's the
Yeah,
breakdown there?
that's exactly right. Yeah, it's two-third road course. It's about a third permanent road course like Barber, and then we have street courses where we literally just set up shop in the middle of people's cities, and those are cool events as well.
Well, what's it like going racing in city streets? Do you worry about potholes or anything? I mean, what I can't imagine. I've never actually seen one in person. I've never seen an IndyCar race in person. I need to come out to Barber. Well, what is a street course like? Maybe in comparison to a permanent road course like Barber.
Yeah, well, obviously, yeah, it's definitely it's more bumpy. You do have the manhole covers and stuff, but there's no potholes. There's great preparation by the cities.
And do you ever worry about, because the crowds are kind of right next to it, does anyone ever worry about sort of the crowd getting too close or being too close to the crowd, or is there far enough distance between the track surface and the crowd?
Yeah, I mean, there's far enough distance. I mean, you could get just as close at Barber. There's some great vantage points there as well. So, arguably better actually, because there's a lot of elevation at Barber. So, you can sit up on the hills and watch.
Closest road course to here, and I know Indy does a race there, but some of the other road course series do, is Road Atlanta. Have you ever had a chance to test there or run the the Petit Le Mans up there or anything?
Yeah, actually, we were in pretty good command of the Petit Le Mans to win it overall. I think this was 2008. And our teammate with like 10 minutes to go in a 10-hour race had a big shunt, and we didn't finish. So
Oh no!
that was frustrating. He couldn't have done that on lap 2. We had to go 9 hours into it.
Oh boy, that's a bummer right there. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a couple of either/or questions. All right,
Mm-hmm.
so I may know the answer to this, knowing the breakdown of the IndyCar schedule, but do you prefer road courses or ovals?
I can't pick, man, because I've had fun days on both, and my answer is always, wherever the car is handling. I've had I've had terrible days on both and fun days on both.
So the tracks need to start paying your crew chief and your crew
Right.
to get it all together. All right, so do you have a favorite particular road course?
Permanent road course. This is one of them. Yeah, this definitely Barber is one of them.
And what about a favorite oval? Y'all race on some of the same races as NASCAR tracks, Fontana in Texas in Iowa. So, do you have a favorite oval?
It's the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I mean, without a question.
Yeah, I think that might do. Yeah, I left a big one out there, didn't I? I think of Indy as its own thing. I don't think of it as just yours or ours.
Right.
I think of it as just its own
Yeah,
little
for
deal.
sure.
Okay. Now, do you prefer when it comes to ovals? Do you prefer a kind of a short track setting like Iowa, or maybe a bigger track like Texas? That may be kind of the same question, but
Yeah, again, I mean, I've had success on both and tough days on both. There's different disciplines to both, and I think that's what's so cool about the IndyCar series is we're so diverse. There's so many different types of tracks. I enjoy the short ovals, though. At night is a cool show.
yeah, absolutely. It's NASCAR fans who love night races too. Now let's tie this in a little bit to NASCAR. Last year you had Kurt Busch as a teammate, and I think he said he's not doing the double this year. But what was it like racing as a teammate with a NASCAR guy that's come over and seemed like he acclimated well? Seemed like Allmendinger has. What was it like, particularly though, with Kurt Busch having him as a teammate?
Yeah, I think he did a fantastic job. To finish sixth in his first go around was pretty awesome. It was he's a driver. So it's not like you can isolate him as a NASCAR driver. He's just an all around driver.
Have you ever considered trying to do the crossover yourself? That sort of was a fad like 6 or 7 years ago, where a few guys like Montoya came over and started racing NASCAR, and it sort of fell out. I mean, have you ever looked at it and said, "Man, I've done this IndyCar thing since 2005 and 6. It might be time to try something else, or at least just dabble"?
Well, I think I could jump into like a Daytona or Talladega, but what those guys do on the shorter tracks, I mean, it would just take years of learning to really get to where those guys are. I mean, they're it's literally like comparing baseball to basketball, how different our cars are.
Well, and that leads you to the next thing. When I interviewed Will Power and A.J. Allmendinger 2 years ago, I just read a blog post, but I can't remember which IndyCar driver it was, but really talking about how physically or how much endurance, I guess, it takes to drive an IndyCar. And what he said, or what the answer to me when I asked them is that IndyCar races are shorter, so that kind of balances out as far as endurance goes. But what is it like? I guess I know you haven't raced a NASCAR race car. What is it like trying to condition for one of these cars? What do you have to do, and then what is the physical toll taken in just a 200 or 300 mile race?
Yeah, I don't think it balances out at all. I think our sprint races are way more physical, than running all day with power steering. Those guys, I mean, it's very hot and stuff like that. But, physically we have no power steering. We have thousands of pounds of G loading, and it's brutal. I mean, on the brakes, and like we were talking about how bumpy the street courses are.
Yeah.
It's definitely it's tough to relate to. I mean, you just think we just drive in the cars and stuff like that, left and right. But I mean, there's a lot that goes on.
Now, do you think with your team you've been in this? I guess this would be your 10th year, right?
Yeah.
So that's hard to believe. By the way, I mean, because we're both about the same age. It's hard to believe it's been a 10th season since Marco Andretti came on the scene. That I'm sure you've heard the criticism before. Why isn't he like his granddad? Why isn't he like his dad?
For sure.
Has your team ever hit its total potential, or do you think there's still more to be had? Are you happy with where you're at? This year's kind of started out with 10th, 8th place type finishes. I mean,
yeah, I'm not happy with the current results. No, absolutely not. But all it takes is to be in a sweet spot for 3-4 years, and you can really click off a bunch. I look at a guy like Dario Franchitti. He didn't start really dominating till his 30s. And I'm 28, so hopefully we have longevity on our side. But yeah, I mean, I have a lot of experience now. I think we're in a sweet spot as far as our the 27 Snapple team. I think I'm really happy and thrilled about my new engineer and the crew guys. I mean, the pit stops have been great. I think we're at a little bit of a deficit right now with the aero kits, but hopefully our speedway package is solid.
Okay, well, that leads me to my next question then. I did get a Twitter question. I threw it out there. I was bragging about getting to interview an IndyCar driver for once. It happens once a year, okay? Thanks to Katie over there. So I want to say this. What is the difference with the aero kits this year? I don't know a whole lot about the mechanics of these race cars, but I know they tinker with things just like NASCAR does. How is the 2015 IndyCar compared to 14 and then in years past, and where does your team stack up? It sounds like you're still looking for some still.
Yeah. I mean, I think right now we're at a bit of a deficit. The Chevys are definitely pretty quick. Last week I was the best Honda and I was 8th, so from that standpoint it's a little frustrating. But it's early days. But the difference now, we just have a bit more grip. That's the easiest way to put it. You can brake a bit later, roll off the brake, and roll more mid-corner speed. We were comparing to my dad at Long Beach. I think our mid-corner speeds are somewhere like over 10 miles an hour faster. So mid-corner is pretty impressive now.
And that's one thing I wanted to point out, too. In NASCAR, there's kind of this debate going right now about there being too much corner speed and that the cars really need to get slowed down so they can put it more in the driver's hands. Is that something, is it maybe the opposite in IndyCar? You want it to go faster, that separates the drivers, or is it the same concept? Do you think you have too much corner speed?
I think in qualifying, a driver wants more power and more grip. Me, I think we need more power. But honestly, for the racing, the problem is with the more cornering speeds, you don't have the braking zones, so it might eliminate a little bit of passing. But it's still a heck of a show.
Oh, certainly is. Now you got Snapple on; they've been on with you for a couple of years here. What are some of the cool things you get to do with your primary sponsor?
Yeah, I mean, those guys, they've become like family. It's unbelievable. They were just in where I'm from, near Nazareth, and they were looking at buying a plant up there, and they came in, and obviously I welcome them in. They all stay at the house. We went to a Tom Petty concert.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean those guys literally they become family, and their loyalty is unbelievable.
All right, now here in Atlanta we have Andretti indoor karting. Okay, and I've gone there a few times, and I always feel like, wow, could be a race car driver before I start racing. And there was a time, for instance, we raced against Joey Logano from NASCAR, and he lapped the entire media 3 times. I mean, I was second fastest in the media. I thought I was pretty good. He lapped us 3 times in a very short time. How often do you get to kart? Do you ever visit the Andretti locations around the country? Have you been to the one here in Atlanta?
I'm actually embarrassed to say I have not been there, but my friends that live here are always trying to drag me there. I mean, I love just messing around and going fun karting and stuff like that, but yeah, I did some proper karting this off season. I went to do the Super Nats, which is kind of like jumping into fire in Vegas. But yeah, it was fun. I was up to 9th in one of the heat races, but got caught up in a barrier, so I had to come from the back in the mains. But those kids are unbelievable, the talent nowadays.
All right, and one more for you here. What do you like to do in your non-Indy time? The races may be more grueling, but the schedule's about half that of what a typical NASCAR schedule is, 18, 19 races a year. What do you do in that other amount of time when you're not actually racing?
Yeah, I mean, the on season, as you say, is pretty pretty busy, and it's a life dominating sport. I mean, even in the off season, I have to get my training in before anything. But I just like to travel. I mean, I put a lot of time in the office as well. I have some commercial real estate that keeps me busy. Yeah, I mean, I like to stay active for sure.
All right, and actually, I wanted to ask one thing earlier. Conditioning, what are some of the types of things that you do to stay fit? You obviously could take me on and pound me into the ground right now, and maybe you might want to after this interview. We don't know. But what are some of the things you do to stay in shape? And is there something that is particular to race car drivers for conditioning that maybe a normal guy just trying to stay fit at the gym wouldn't do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of core work, I think, for an IndyCar driver. A lot of endurance. You really have to sustain a high, heartbeat for a long period of time.
Trouble.
Yeah. But I'm a big runner. I do mostly running. Even boring on the treadmill and stuff when the weather's not great. But just try to get it in regardless.
There you go. Well, if you have some spots in between your media stops, there are plenty of gyms here in Atlanta, up and down Peachtree, and
I'm taking a day off.
All sorts of yoga pants going on, all that stuff. I'll take care of you. So anyway, but thank you so much, Marco, for joining us here. I know you got a busy weekend here, and we're glad you stopped in Atlanta and here at WSB.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
No, glad to.